So I wanted to see if Claude AI could help me find better, more relevant B-roll to use in my videos. I'm going to go over 4 key discoveries that I've made, and let's start with the first one, which is using Claude AI for scene-specific B-roll ideas. So I was working on a potential video segment about morning routines, and so instead of just typing morning routine B-roll, I tried to make it really specific. I asked Claude for B-roll ideas that could visually capture the essence of a morning routine. You know, things like coffee brewing, sunlight pouring in from the window, maybe like close-up of hands typing on a laptop, and maybe even some shots of people doing yoga or morning stretching. But I wanted to see if Claude could come up with ideas to make this scene more authentic and relatable. So let's check out Claude's response, and what I found out, as you can see, is really cool. You know, Claude started generating ideas beyond the basics that I had in mind. It started suggesting shots of someone looking in through a window as the sun rises, or a time lapse of the morning light shifting in the room. Now these are the kind of things which I would think of perhaps after I finish the edit, but thanks to Claude, I can get these ideas now up front. Let's go back into this again. It even recommended specific moods for certain shots. So a nice warm cozy vibe for the coffee scene. And what this says to me is it instantly makes the B-roll feel a lot more cohesive. If you give Claude just a little bit more context, it'll give you back so much more value. And of course, this isn't just limited to morning routines. I tried it with other scenes as well. So for example, let's look at this one. I chose a busy city street prompt. Each idea it came up with was dynamic, but also really specific to the scene. And while these suggestions might sound really small, they make a huge difference in the final edit. Because with B-roll that's really tailored to the vibe and the details of your scene, it just makes the video seem a lot more immersive for the viewers. It's not they're just hearing about your morning routine or the coffee you're drinking anymore. They get to visually experience it with you. And I think that's the real power of using Claude in this way. It can help our content seem a lot more engaging by offering these really intentional scene-specific ideas. First, don't hold back on the details. The more context you give, the better that Claude can understand what you're going for. Second, think about the mood or the emotion that you want to create from your video. If you can add that into your prompt, then Claude will often come back with loads of ideas that can amplify that emotion. And finally, don't be afraid to ask for variety. Claude can give you such a wide range of options, and so having this variety means that you can experiment with loads of different ideas that best fit your needs. Which brings us nicely to our second discovery, which was the specificity test. I wanted to test how much detail impacts Claude's response for these suggestions. I was essentially just comparing basic prompts with really hyper super detailed ones. And trust me, the difference is mind-blowing. So let me show you exactly what I mean. So first I tried this basic prompt. Suggest B-roll for a video about coffee making. And as you can see, here's what Claude gave. Yeah, and it's pretty generic stuff, right? It's just the usual shots of coffee being poured and steam rising. But then I tried this really detailed prompt. Yeah, check it out. I want to create a cozy morning atmosphere. The video needs to show the precision and craft involved while making viewers feel like they're in a peaceful cafe. Include shots that highlight the sensory experience, both visual and audio suggestions. The target audience is coffee enthusiasts who appreciate attention to detail. And as you can see now, the difference between the first prompt and this hyper specific prompt, the difference is absolutely incredible. Instead of just generic coffee shots, we're getting things a close-up macro shot of water droplets, the subtle color change of the coffee as it filters through. And so this got me thinking, what if we could apply this to other scenarios for our B-roll? So I tested it with another example. The example I chose was for a tech review. So here's the basic prompt. Suggest B-roll for a laptop review. And then here's the detailed version. Suggest B-roll for a laptop review focusing on a creator's workflow. The laptop is being used in both bright and low light conditions. I want to highlight its design while showing real world usage. I need transitions between desk setup and mobile use. Also include suggestions for audio elements and timing for each shot. The goal is to make viewers feel like they're seeing the laptop in authentic working condition. And as you can see, Claude's not just giving standard generic shots. It suggested entire sequences like tracking shots following the laptop from desk to coffee shop, close-ups of fingers interacting with the touchpad in different lighting, natural environmental sounds mixed with typing sounds, and then time lapses of different workspace setups. I mean, the difference again is just absolutely crazy. And what I noticed about how Claude handles detail is that it doesn't matter about adding more words to the prompt. It's about adding the right context to the prompt. And I found that there are usually 5 elements to the prompt that can help you get consistently better results. First, like the mood or the atmosphere you want to create. Second, like the technical details about your current shooting capabilities. Any transition moments you need to cover, the sound designs you need to capture, and any like specific viewer emotions that you want to trigger. Each detail you give Claude should have the purpose of trying to make Claude understand the story that you're trying to tell through your B-roll. And that sums up the specificity test, which brings us on to our third discovery, which is through role-playing. Now what I found with this discovery is that if you give Claude a specific character or role to play, its B-roll suggestions become incredibly creative but also detailed. Let me show you what I mean. And so here's an example of a prompt that I was using initially. I was just asking Claude like for standard B-roll suggestions like this. You know, can you suggest some B-roll shots for a video about urban photography? And so with prompts like this, now the suggestions are fine, but again, it's pretty basic. And so I wanted to try something different. I asked Claude to take on the role of an experienced cinematographer. So in the prompt now, I asked it to act as an experienced cinematographer who shot documentary films for Netflix. Based on your experience, what B-roll sequences would you suggest for capturing the essence of urban photography? Consider both the technical aspects and storytelling elements. And so comparing like that first basic prompt now to this more detailed one, I mean, look, the difference is just crazy. It's incredible. Instead of just like listing shots, Claude started thinking like a real cinematographer. Just look at the response. You know, as you can see, it suggested things like using Dutch angles to capture the photographer's perspective while shooting, incorporating natural frames within the urban environment, even specific lens recommendations for different shots. So yeah, again, this is really interesting stuff, but I wanted to push this discovery a little bit further, maybe try and get Claude to play a different role. So look what happened when I asked Claude to be a visual storyteller focusing on human emotion. How would you approach B-roll selection for a scene about a street photographer connecting with their subject? And Claude started suggesting these amazingly like thoughtful sequences, such as catching subtle micro-expressions between photographer and subject, using shallow depth of field to isolate emotional moments, incorporating environmental sounds to enhance the mood, and even suggested timing for each shot to build emotional impact. And so here are the key things I learned then from the role-play approach. When you give Claude a specific role to play, it stops thinking in like just B-roll lists and starts thinking in complete visual sequences. It's almost like unlocking a brand new level of creativity. Of course, just make sure that the roles that you want Claude to play make sense with the video that you're doing. For example, you're doing a cooking video, ask Claude to be a food photographer. If it's for a tech review, ask it to be a commercial cinematographer. The more specific you can be with the role, the better the B-roll suggestions will be. And so this is how you use the role-playing discovery to make your videos more engaging. But there's also one more discovery I like to share that can help you structure these prompts for the best results. And that's with our format hack. Now naming this, I didn't know what else to call it. It just seemed like a little hack to me. But what it might lack in naming power should hopefully be made up for by its ability to help you make better B-roll. And so the format hack, as we're calling it, is all about how asking Claude for specific formats can help completely transform the B-roll suggestions. And so let's have a look at a basic prompt. And when you normally ask Claude for B-roll ideas, you might just get something like this. Suggest B-roll for a product review video. And as you can see, you'll get a decent list of shots, but here's where our hack comes in. So instead of just asking for suggestions, start asking for specific formats, such as a shot list or a storyboard, etc. So here's the same request, but with a format hack. Create a detailed shot list for a product review video. For each shot, include the shot type, either wide, medium, or close-up, the camera movement, the duration, the key elements to capture, and any suggested transitions. So let's run that and just look how much more detailed and usable this is. Instead of just general ideas, look, we've got a complete shooting plan. You know, we've got shot 1, the product hero shot. It's given us the type, the movement, the duration, the elements, the transition. And it's done the same for the second shot, the feature detail. And it goes on like this for the entire sequence. And after playing around with this for a while, I came up with 3 templates that consistently got amazing results. First is the visual story arc. Let me show you what this looks like in action. So in Claude, here's our prompt. Break down a product review into these visual chapters and suggest B-roll for each. The first impressions, the key features, the real world usage, and then the final thoughts. And then as you can see, we've listed how many shots we want for each chapter. We also want to include for each chapter the mood or the atmosphere, the key transitions, the must-have shots, and then maybe some optional creative shots as well. Again, amazing. Claude just started organizing B-roll into these complete visual stories. These aren't just random shots anymore. Each sequence is just built on the previous one to create a really coherent narrative. Which brings us then to our second template, which is the technical breakdown. So let's have a look at what this one looks like in action. Here's our prompt. Create a B-roll shot list with these technical specifications. We want the camera settings, so like the suggested aperture and the shutter speed. We want the lighting setup, the required equipment, the shot duration, and then any post-production notes that we need. So the purpose of this prompt is to get Claude to think about the technical aspects of what we're shooting. And it started giving results like, use a variable ND filter for the outdoor tracking shots. Maybe consider a gimbal for the revealing walkthrough sequence. And then we have the final template, which is the emotion first template. So let's look what this one looks like in Claude. And here's the prompt. Structure the B-roll sequence around these emotional beats. We want the initial curiosity, we want to build interest, the key revelation, and then the resolution. And again, we've listed how many shots we want for each chapter. And then for each beat, specify the viewer emotion to evoke, the shot composition, the pacing and the timing, and then the music design notes. And so the purpose of this format is to get Claude thinking about how it emotionally interacts with our viewers. And so overall, here's what makes these 3 templates really powerful. First, they force Claude to be really specific and detailed. Second, they create really structured and organized shot lists. And then they also make it feel like you're planning a real production. And the best part is you can mix and match for what you need. For example, if you're making a tutorial, use the visual story arc. If you're making a technical review, go with the technical breakdown. And so, after testing all these different ways of working with Claude, all these different prompts, they've completely changed my workflow for B-roll. And hopefully they might be able to help and improve yours too. The first big takeaway is that context is everything. Remember at the beginning when we used that coffee example, the basic prompt compared to the hyper-specific one? The difference, night and day. But remember, it's not about how much detail you give it, it's about giving it the right context. The second big takeaway is that Claude thinks differently depending on the role you give it. If you want cinematic B-roll, make it a cinematographer. If you need emotional depth from your video, make it a visual storyteller. And this will allow you to unlock different creative sections from Claude's brain. And the final big takeaway is about using that format hack. Those templates that we went through, they can help turn your raw ideas into a complete production. The visual story arc, the technical breakdown, the emotion first format, these aren't just organizing tools. They're frameworks for better storytelling. The best B-roll isn't just about having the most shots that you can get into your video. It's about telling a story that connects with your viewers. And what I've discovered is Claude can help you find these story moments, but only if you know how to ask. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you choosing to spend your time with me. I'll see you in the next one. Take care, guys.